episode 5, Conversations with Counselors, with Counsellor and WIRTH friend, Ly Hoang. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
It's so great to be on this mysterious, beautiful location and to be outside and safely chatting. So our goal when we started this was really reducing the barriers around counseling and therapy. And so we wanted to kind of take away the first step of, what it would be like to go to a counselor. What would it be like to sit next to Ly and have a conversation? Yeah. And so for people watching this, they can be like, oh, I would just be where Ben is and I'd be chatting and it would, it's not this scary thing. And so that was always the goal. And then just to provide people some real value. People who are watching this, who may be struggling, who may be confused about what counseling is, just trying to answer some of those questions.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks again for joining us. And we're going to start off how we always start off, which is some rapid fire personality questions.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Great. So question number 1, what is one interesting thing or passion that you like to do that majority of people wouldn't know about you?
Yeah. I'm a bit of an open book, and if I'm passionate about something, I'll probably talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I like to bake, I like to garden, I like to swim, and people who know me know that about me, right? So I like to do community organizing, social justice work, talk about ways to improve mental health. So
amazing.
Yeah,
there's no secrets.
Everyone
knows.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Question number 2, what is one activity or thing you wish you learned as a kid?
Yeah, I wish my parents had put me in dance classes.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah, I think, especially working with people in mental health, there's so much stuff we store in our bodies.
Yeah.
And it would have been great to learn how to use my body in different ways, cool. Right? And I think dance, hip hop, those kinds of things would have been really great, like as a confidence booster and as a way to de-stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really, so do you dance now?
No.
No, yeah.
I have taken a couple like adult ballet and contemporary dance classes, which are just hilarious.
Yeah.
Just hilarious.
What it is, it's true, just like, again, we store so much in our bodies and to be able to like freely express and move that. Yeah. And that side of it's never really explored or thought of too much, especially when you're younger. Last personality question. What would a perfect Saturday look like for Ly?
Perfect Saturday, usually most of my Saturdays are morning exercise, like swim, walk with the dog, hike, farmer's market, coming back, making something from scratch, listening to music.
It's an amazing Saturday.
Just hanging out, being really slow.
Really? Yeah. Some of those things like a hike sounded kind of fast,
yeah.
but a slow hike.
Slow.
Yeah, very slow. Yeah, taking in everything. Good, great. Awesome. So leading from that, just moving into counseling, of just the question around why did you choose to become a counselor? Like why counseling?
Yeah, I worked a lot in after-school programming for young people, and right away it was really obvious that, for many of us, we struggle with mental health issues, right? And I think teachers do an amazing job of managing some of that stuff. But, I was really noticing a need for more mental health services. And then working with people in the community, when someone was from the community, looked like those young people, there was just so much more of a connection and an understanding.
Right.
And I think for me, being Chinese, being an immigrant, really noticing, I don't really see people like me talking about mental health. Right. So I really wanted to be that person, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that coming to see, I've gotten lots of value working with counselors who are really different from me. Right. Like, for example, Brian Dean Williams. He's one of, I've worked with him in clinical supervision, and it's been really positive and useful, but I think there's also something really useful in maybe seeing someone who has some lived and shared experiences.
Yeah.
And even if that person doesn't come to me, seeing, oh, wow, she looks like me, and she's talking about that.
Right. Awesome. What is one thing that a misconception about counseling, or some people just don't quite understand?
Yeah, I think the other counselor guests have done a really good job of talking about this, right? Like, really, you can be shopping around. Like it's not the first person that you land with, right?
Yeah.
But I think something that people don't think about is it's not just individual counseling. Like you can do couples counseling and family counseling and group counseling. There's all these different ways to access therapy work, right? Or art therapy or dance therapy, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be just this.
It can be an amazing option and a great option for people. And I would love to hear a bit more about that because, I think for a lot of people, there's still this kind of stigma around it. And whether that's from movies, pop culture, but it's like a group therapy session. There's a little bit more there. So I'd love just to...
Yeah, well, we talked about this on the phone, that there's really not accurate representations of what group counseling is. I think most people think of group counseling like an AA, hi, my name is, right? But group counseling can be really specific to something you're working on, right? So, for example, Yaz, who you've had before, she and I ran a women of color therapy group for women to talk about racism and sexism and how it impacts their self-identity and self-esteem, right? So it was a processing group, with women who might have your same lived experiences. And I know Brian, who's been on this program too, he's run a group for folks struggling with substance use issues. Or I think he's also run groups for men, right? So there's something really nice about like an affinity group like that, to come together and share.
For sure. And I think too, for some, it can at times be a little, maybe in that first attempt or for going can be a little intimidating, but once you're there and realize you're in a safe place and a group of like-minded people with a shared experience, it can be so powerful.
I've seen in groups that I've run, maybe someone's really struggling with something, right? But then they are not able to vocalize it or process it, but they say you vocalize and process it, and the insights that you have really then help them. It's like you're getting the therapy from whatever the facilitator, the counselor is offering, right? But then also the therapy from someone else walking that experience, right? And then you can walk away and be like, oh, Ben tried that. Maybe I'll try that, in my relationship conversation.
Yeah, awesome. I think it is, to learn from each other can be such a powerful experience, because you can feel so alone too. Like, and I think too, like we can in general feel so alone in our issue, or that we've only experienced it, and then you can get into a room, you're like, wow, I'm not alone, and that's such a liberating feeling. It really is.
One of the things when I work with young people that consistently young people say is, I feel so lonely. I feel like I'm so alone in this, right? And they really don't see other people because everybody's Instagram stories are so curated, right? They really think that they are the only one experiencing it. So having someone express exactly what you've been going through can be so just connecting. Awesome. And so with that too, because I know you've done a lot of work with youth and young adults, and I'll just be curious to know a bit more of like, what are some of the main challenges and struggles you see with youth and young adults around mental health? So most people might know this, but your prefrontal cortex, it's the front part of your brain. It's the newest part of the human brain, right? It doesn't fully develop until you're about 24. This is the podcast piece.
There we go. Perfect.
But for someone who's like 15, 17, 18, they're really like feeling some strong emotions. You remember being that age
for sure,
feeling those strong, intense emotions. And I think what we don't realize as teenagers is we're meant to feel that range. We're meant to have those highs and super lows, so that when we come into adulthood, we know where our boundaries are. Right. But then sometimes for young people, those that can be really impulsive, because your prefrontal cortex is what helps you make good decisions, rational decisions, right? And it's not fully online yet. So you've got the high feelings and the low feelings, but not the executive functioning to
Right.
make good decisions in that place, right?
Yeah, I feel though you could never tell a teen that.
No.
Yeah, they'd be like, yeah, you're just not. They'd be like, I know everything. What are you talking about?
You know, you actually be surprised. I
Yeah.
use that language and I talk about that with
they-
teenagers, and they really get it.
Awesome. Cool.
And I think the other kind of big challenge with teenagers is seeing adults around them doing the opposite of what the adults are telling the teens to do,
Oh yeah.
right? Like, you need to go to counseling, right?
Right.
Well, what about you, right?
Yeah.
What about
Dad,
you,
you
adult?
need to go. You should have gone 20
Right.
years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So if we want our young people to have like pro-social behaviors and have good mental health, we need to model that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. I think just following up for that too, and we talked about it a little bit on the phone of, youth too, understanding, say if you go to college, that there are resources available. There are, and a lot of times people don't realize that, you can get support and help.
Yeah. So in high schools and universities, there are trained counselors like myself with a master's in counseling psych, registered clinical counselors, right? So they've gone through the training. They're there and available.
I'd love to know, just, are there a couple recommendations or things you suggest to your clients about, just ways to kind of improve their overall mental health and to stay on top of it? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah. This is hard question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, maybe one of the kind of misconceptions of counseling is that we're here to like give advice. Right, and help solve your problem. Right, or like fix you. Right, and I really come from a place where, each one of us were experts in our own lives. Right, so the counseling space is really a space for you to hear yourself think out loud. Right, and get some feedback about your own insights, right? Because what happens when we're like thinking in our heads, and you've probably experienced this, I experience this all the time, it's ruminative, it's circular, it doesn't really go anywhere, right? So, the counseling space is really a chance to hear yourself talk out loud, right? So I guess my suggestion would be like talk to someone, talk out loud, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a counselor, an ally, someone who is going to really listen, right, and reflect your words back to you. Yeah,
that's pretty much the episode. We've covered a lot,
yeah,
and so I'm now going to turn over any last closing thoughts, anything, and it's okay if you don't have any, but if there is any closing words, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, when I was prepping, I think the two things that we didn't kind of touch on that I like to share is, I think something that's powerful about counseling, it helps us be okay with discomfort.
Yeah.
Right, like that awkward, bored, uncomfortable feeling that everybody experiences. Yeah. Right? Counseling, my mindfulness practices really helped me be okay with that.
Right.
So I think it'd be interesting if you experienced that, right? Like this low grade, like, I'm just like not comfortable, not like okay. Counseling might help you kind of not like fix that, but be okay with it in a more accepting, insightful way. Versus like that distracting, reaching for something else. For sure. And then the other thing that's been kind of just personally that I've been working around is dealing with grief. Like there's so much crazy shit in the world right now. Like I think just like it's sad to like see forest fires. It's sad to see, young men being shot. Like it's sad. These things are really just so heavy, right? And I think we don't really have ways to grieve that. And there's a lot of therapists who can work with that, right? And or just personal reflection and things that we can do to grieve those things.
Yeah. And with that then too it is just understanding that that is present for a lot of people, and again, finding someone to try and work through that, discomfort and or pain or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're feeling people, right? Like we have neurons in our brain that is meant to like see each other and feel each other, right? So this stuff, it can feel really far removed from you, but it still impacts us.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
No, for sure. And it's just funny. I do, like I said, I've worked in leadership and management work, and even for those who don't think we're feeling people, you do. Our life is controlled by feelings and emotions, and it's constantly there. Yeah, and it's constantly having an impact in a multitude of ways. Yeah. Thanks so much, Lee. Episode 5, Conversation with Counselors in the Bank. Thanks so much, Ly Hoang.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.